move on to the just a few minutes left now of the next section. Sorry, I've noticed that there's a duplicate speaker bubble there. But anyway, the idea of this is, why are we including websites in a social media session? We don't want to spend ages on it, but basically because a website is the ultimate in a digital media presence. And I get asked this question a lot, or some of these questions a lot. Do we still need one? Can Facebook take a website's place? Is it worth the effort? Is it worth the money? You've already had some of these discussions amongst yourselves. I think I know I have on the table I was sat on. So the answer, me personally, in my experience as the communications manager, I would say without a doubt the answer to all these questions, is it worth it? Yes, it really is. You do still need a website that represents your parish or mission partnership. There are a few mission partnerships in the diocese that share a website now, and there are some, I think, is it the Penistone one? I think it's about 5 churches that shares one website, isn't there, in yours? So, yeah, so yes, it's really worthwhile doing. So why? Just a few quick ways to try and convince you on that. Now, I'd ask yourself, I think it's all about credibility for me. So would you buy from an organisation that doesn't have a website? Would you buy purely through Facebook? Even if it had a really good Facebook page and a really nice Twitter profile, would you buy from it if it didn't have a website? I wouldn't either, and I don't think it's any different for churches at all. And that is purely for me the main reason why. It's credibility. If I search for a product or anything or an organisation and it doesn't have a website, I'm actually not interested, because I think you're not credible enough for me. It might not be true, but that is the perception. Another very big reason is you are completely, well, in theory, completely in control of your own website in terms of branding and content, what you put on it, what goes out, what it looks like. So Facebook, you're restricted to everything that Facebook restricts you to. You can do a lot with it, but you can't ever get away from the Facebook brand, from problems with Cambridge Analytica that might happen, from the way they make you display your content and from how you see it. It's the same with Twitter and Instagram. You are bound totally by their branding, whereas on your own website you can do that. And of course it's a central hub for all of your communications. So you can link all your social media channels into it, but you can also have more, I'm not going to say old-fashioned, but other ways of communicating and marketing. So if you do a printed newsletter, you can have a PDF of that on your website and tell people about it. You can have Facebook and Twitter now as your news on your homepage, so you don't have to update it with your own news, so you can do that. And it allows you to talk to a multiple audience. At the end of the day, one of the things I found really hard if you were looking at marketing in the diocese, and I'm using the word marketing rather than communicating more, because in marketing you define your audience. We speak to an absolutely massive audience, so it's really hard to do that. And a website can kind of touch on all of those points if you get that right. I'm just going to move on to 2 more points. A church near you. So a church near you will all be familiar with. Phase 1, it went under a massive redevelopment last year. I think they launched it November 2017. The national team in London oversee this and have done a lot of work on it. They made it look better, and in theory they made it better to search for certain things you might want from your local church. It's not been without its problems, but it's still a great development. The reason they place so much emphasis on this, so it really is a central part of their comm strategy, is the figures. So 12.3, this is for 2017. The site got 12.3 million views, 2.3 million users, and it's a healthy age and gender split. There's all sorts of stats that sits behind that to prove that even more. Basically, when it comes down to it, they say on Christmas Eve they have their biggest spike of the year for people going on looking for local Christmas carol services, and they say it's a massive amount, and it's split across all the dioceses and rural and urban city centres. So they've put a lot of work into doing this, and the phase 2 has seen this October an ability to use that now as your website. And what they mean by that is that you can have a domain, maybe you've already got one, or you can have whatever domain it is, and point that to your Church Near You page. So I'm telling you that because it's really worthwhile knowing if you're a parish that's got an old-fashioned website and you just can't update it, you haven't got the money, you haven't got the funds, and you'll never convince your PCC to think that way. This is now a valid option. I'd still prefer to have your own website, and if you have and can, brilliant, but do this anyway. Whoever edits a church near you for your parish needs to make sure it's up to date, because you're getting a lot of hits and a lot of functionality there for nothing. And just harping on about the national team again, because they are producing some pretty good stuff. Their digital team's now massive, and they're doing a lot for parishes. Their initiative Digital Labs has been going about a year. If you take nothing more away from this, it's if you sign up to this here, churchofengland.org/digital labs, you'll get regular newsletters on anything really digital, social media based. So a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today, maybe blogs from their head of digital, Adrian Harris, who's an excellent chap, really knows his stuff. So yeah, if you take nothing more away, then please just think about signing up to that and getting those emails. That's it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we were going to do a quiz, but for time, I'm just going to go through the gist of it rather than to do a quiz. So, the idea of this particular section is it appropriate for you to develop your own website rather than use the more expensive version of developing a website? So can you do it? Can you do a DIY job on a website is the question. There's just a few questions to ask yourself as we think about that. So if you don't know what a JPEG and a PNG is, maybe it's not appropriate for you to be starting to think about doing a website. Do you know what a domain is? If the answer is no, well, you know, it's going to be really hard for you to, it's going to be a steep learning curve is what I'm saying. Do you know what HTML and CSS are? You don't necessarily need to know what they stand for, but do you know what they do? Again, if you don't, it's going to be much harder for you to, you can learn all these things, but from a standing start, you're starting to ask questions, oh, this is going to be harder than I thought. Do you manage your own site or want to in the future? That's an obvious question in this area. And do you or someone else have enough time? This is the biggie. So you might know the theory and the technical side of it, but if you haven't got time to do it and keep it up to date, because an out-of-date website is worse and detrimental than not having a website at all, because it sends out the wrong message. So time is the biggie. But we've rushed through that a little bit. But questions to ask yourself, do you need a website at all? That is actually a question. LJ's talked about a church near you, and we've talked about Facebook. Maybe those things are okay. We would recommend you having a website, but you might decide, actually, no, we don't. And it depends on who's it for. What's your audience to a certain extent? You know, who are you trying to communicate with? Is it the people in the church, and that's all? And a closed Facebook group might do that job. Is it for people out there, so it's like evangelism and just generally promoting events to your church, and most people do want to do that, so a website is good. Are they young, old? What background are they from? Where are they located? You need to ask yourself who you're trying to communicate with and what's the best way to do that. What do you want to achieve with it? I've covered a little bit of that, but you do need to ask these questions before you set out on your website. If you've got a website, you still need to ask these questions. How will people find it? That's a big one. So I have a website, if nobody knows where it is, what's the point? You need to think about search engine optimization, as in how people find things effectively using a search engine, or you need to direct them to it via links, e-bulletins, social media with links back to where what the information on your page is. How will it be updated? We've covered that, but it's a very important question. It's probably the biggest question. And how will it look on mobile devices? That's often called responsivity. So you need to remember, it looks, wow, our website looks great on the desktop, As soon as you put it on a mobile phone, it looks horrible. Well, you need to be working on that, because lots and lots, high percentages of people use mobile phones to access websites now, and not just mobile phones but tablets. Okay, we're doing a bit of a... So the two biggies in terms of doing your own website. So this is a DIY section. If you are thinking, because they'll say, oh, it's really, really easy to do your own website, and in some ways it is. But if you can't answer positive to some of the questions I've been posing, maybe it's not, even with these easy to use versions. But there are two biggies, big players at the moment, Squarespace and Wix, and I was just going to do a little bit of a comparison, which is the best, who's going to win. So ease of use, let's see who's the winner on that one. So Wix apparently is easier to use if you're considering either of these two options. Only very slight, there's not much in it, but Wix has it over Squarespace. Themes, Wix has more themes, so I think the themes are the styles, the colours, the things that you can just import in ready-made, so that you're ready to go with it, and it has a different look and feel, is what it's all about. Wix has more. I made some notes. I think 300 themes. Squarespace has 90. 90 is probably enough anyway, so there's probably not much in it. Responsivity, Squarespace is definitely the best. It's totally all about how it looks on all of your devices. That's why it's sort of called Squarespace. Wix is pretty good, but it can have some problems. Substructure, Wix only has one level before after the home page. So if you want a number of menus, Squarespace is a better option. Search engine optimization, which one would be found better and quicker? I would suggest Wix is slightly better, but again, there's not much in it. Blogging, Squarespace, if it's a blogging site that you want, Squarespace is a better option. Support, Squarespace comes out on top just because they have a chat support, online chat, which Wix doesn't have. Plugins, you don't get any with Squarespace, but actually in some ways that makes it easier to use, because you don't have to worry about conflicts and problems with external plugins. But Wix has more options, and they're being developed all the time. And cost about the same. They're about £10 a month for a sort of a medium level use of both of those. £10 a month roughly, and you can spend more, you can spend less. So which one wins? We would probably say Squarespace is the winner, just because we prefer it, but both are options. WordPress is another big one. Slightly more sophisticated, there's more menus, there's more options. It probably costs a little bit more because you have to host it somewhere. It's pretty easy to use and get into. There's a learning curve. And the other good thing about WordPress is you can easily pass it over to a web developer if you've done some work. And most web developers will be like, yeah, I work with WordPress very quickly and easily. It's not a problem. So you can have that middle ground where you can update it yourself. You can also get a web developer to update it for you. Facebook versus website. I think LJ's covered this, but can you just get away with a Facebook page? We would probably say use both. If you had to have one, we would probably say website, but you don't just have to have one. Use both. But credibility, LJ was pointing out, websites have more credibility. Control of how it looks and the tools that you use, far greater on a website than Facebook. Ease of use, Facebook definitely wins out. Cost, Facebook wins out. It's free, largely, unless you boost posts and that sort of thing. Sharing and promo, loads better on Facebook. And mobile devices, again, there's no problems with that because it's got an app and it generally looks good on a mobile device. So What's the winner in that though? We would say website, even though Facebook's got more ticks, but you don't have to just have one, you can have both. We would definitely recommend you having both. That's it for that particular area. Any questions on that quickly?
We've ended up just slightly ahead of time really. I suppose just to recap, there's a lot of stuff that we've gone through this morning, and I think don't feel that you have to be an absolute expert straight away by the time you get back. You know, a lot of people are just starting out on this, or maybe starting something new. We've had some conversations about people who've already got some social media platforms and think about starting something else. I'd encourage you to do that. Or maybe if it's your first time in just starting something, then I'd encourage you in that as well. There's been a lot for us to think about, but first of all, I suppose I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Mike, who's really put all of this together, because Mike's carried all of this actually and brought a lot of this together, and also to his glamorous assistants, and I'm just going to include myself in that as well actually. But it's been really good. We've had a lot to think about, different platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, but then also just thinking about how we communicate, how we share what we do. Thanks so much to Lizzie as well for her input from the work that she's done throughout the parish and the mission partnership. And we really would just want to encourage you. These talks will be available on the website soon from St Peter's College, and they will be able to be shared more widely as well, maybe in your congregations if there's a particular talk that you want to use, or maybe bring some of these things up at a PCC.